Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Amor Montes de Oca. I have the honor of being Illinois Women in Cannabis's first executive director. IWC is a nonprofit that seeks to serve, support, and advance women within the Illinois regulated cannabis industry. As the industry continues to mature, we are focused on using education, networking, and mentorship to facilitate opportunities for women exploring, connected to, and/or employed in the cannabis industry. I am here today with three IWC board members to share with us their unique experiences and perspectives in entering the industry. I'd like to start by asking our guests to introduce themselves and share with us a little bit of how they entered the industry. Dina?
Hi, everybody. My name is Gina Roleman. I am the co-founder and president of Illinois Women in Cannabis. I founded it back in 2014 with the dawn of Illinois' new medical cannabis industry. At the time, I had been a practicing attorney for about 15 years. And I just took a real interest in getting involved in cannabis in one way or another. I sort of had to get involved. At the time, I was fortunate enough to meet the founder of Green Thumb Industries, which has now grown into be a publicly traded multi-state operator based in Chicago. And so I've really been part of the Green Thumb team since 2014. And as a result, I've really enjoyed my front seat role in the Illinois industry and throughout the country, seeing something go from, something that has a very stigma to it, to now just being, a huge mainstream job generator, tax revenue generator, and vehicle for social justice and social change. So I look forward to sharing whatever insights I can today. Thank you.
Carrie?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Hello from Chicago. So my name is Gina Armer. I am an attorney, and my legal career really kind of followed the evolution of cannabis policy. I started off in the prosecutor's office here in Chicago, kind of during the throes of the war on drugs, where cannabis was prosecuted all the time. And I still kind of wince at, my participation in that. I pivoted to healthcare and spent about a decade at the American Medical Association, where I worked in their state government affairs shop. And it was there that I really first started monitoring and covering medical cannabis programs as legislation was percolating across the country to create these programs. And at the time, organized medicine just didn't know what to do with medical cannabis. They had no education of the endocannabinoid system in medical school. There were significant concerns about creating a legal medical cannabis program at the state level, yet still having that federal illegality, and how that contradiction may interact with their medical license, with their DEA license. So instead of really trying to understand it, they just threw up their hands and said, we're not going to become involved at all. And what happened is this created a big access problem to patients, because physicians really were the ones that would be certifying patients in order to receive a cannabis card. So despite my efforts to try and get organized medicine educated and engaged, there really was no appetite there. So I left about 5 years ago. I started my own consulting shop. And the bulk of my book of work is working with organizations to improve cannabis education opportunities. I also work with them on legislative and regulatory affairs. I help with licensing. Cannabis is a startup industry, so it's pretty much whatever fire comes up every day, you're kind of called on to work on it. It's been incredibly, just an amazing experience. It kind of merges, health and wellness, criminal justice reform, equity, all into one. And I'm really excited to talk to you today and see how everyone can come join us. So thanks for having us.
Thank you. Gina?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I am grateful for the privilege to be here. My name is Gina Galt. I'm a community outreach specialist with Rise Dispensaries in Illinois. I got started in the cannabis industry in 2017 when I joined Illinois Women in Cannabis as a member. I saw an opportunity within the organization to become an administrative assistant, and thankfully the board brought me on, and I worked my way into a board member position, as well as an opportunity with Green Thumb as their office administrator, and then into their office management. That then led me to being a community outreach specialist with RISE, which is under the arm of Green Thumb. I'm grateful to take all of the transferable skills I've gained throughout my careers and apply them to cannabis. And I look forward to sharing how each of you can help elevate this industry with all the skills that you bring to the table as well.
Thank you, ladies, for those introductions. Let's get started. Dina, what motivated you to start IWC? Tell us about the growth of the organization and why our work is still so important.
Yeah, so in early 2014, Illinois had legalized medical cannabis. And I looked at the statute that legalized it. Illinois was a little unusual that it legalized through legislation, not through a voter referendum. And I could see that these legislators had really thought through the entire framework of a brand new industry that didn't exist, the year before, but was suddenly going to come into existence. And I found it just incredibly exciting that, sort of I was in the right place in the right time and the right age to find a way to participate. And I really saw that it was such an unusual opportunity for women that, pretty much every other profession you look at or other industry, women are playing catch up. They were excluded from leadership roles, they were excluded from employment. And here we were, and suddenly, everyone could be at the starting line together and women would not have to catch up. So in August 2014, I founded it as a not-for-profit. I already had, a very full-time day job. So this wasn't about a job for me. It was about raising awareness for other women that there were just going to be a limitless amount of opportunities. And it was sort of the Wild West, and you could just, create your own future. And so, in those early days, those first networking events, I was thrilled if 50 people showed up at a networking event. And, I used Facebook to raise awareness. I used word of mouth. I had never been a great networker before, but suddenly, I was pushing myself to network. I had never really been comfortable talking publicly that much about cannabis. Suddenly I was all cannabis all the time. And I just had to sort of put myself out there, have the conversations, talk about it as medicine, talk about it as wellness, talk about it as a fundamental right, talk about the social justice elements of it. You kind of couldn't shut me up beginning in 2014. But that was, again, it was great timing because there really was sort of a newfound energy and interest because Colorado and Washington State had just legalized. So this was something that was, much more visible than it had been before. And so we really tapped into the energy at the right time. And so those networking events grew quickly, so what was 50 people became 100 people, became 200. Our last event pre-COVID, 700 people attended. We've really, even though we're in the big city of Chicago, we're close to running out of venues that can hold our crowd. And one of the things I've been really proud of is that since day one, we have really emphasized it being just an open, welcoming, and diverse environment. There is no one type of person in the cannabis industry. Illinois Women in Cannabis, yes, we focus on promoting opportunities for women, but when I say women, that's, anybody who identifies as a woman, and we don't care, what, background you have, this is just to raise awareness for, for everybody. And really, along the way, I've met incredible women in the area, and so worked to promote and to recruit women onto the board of directors. And so, it was through networking events that I met Gina and that I met Carrie. And a lot of, and in fact, Amor, our first executive director, I met at one of our conferences that we put on. So again, grateful for my front seat because I've been able to witness this growth of the Illinois industry, the industry nationally, and then just see women who, as Gina and Carrie were saying, started out dipping a toe in, now have, full-fledged thriving careers in the cannabis industry. So it's been really exciting.
I am grateful for your vision. I am so excited and honored to be here. Thank you. Anybody else?
I would just say that. Go ahead, Carrie.
Go on.
I would just say that, networking is such an essential part of getting into this industry. It's really given me a leg up, and I can see in my day-to-day work how it continues to give other women and other individuals an opportunity to show what they have to offer this community and the work that's being done in the cannabis industry.
That's great. Carrie?
Gina said exactly what I was going to say. I think women by nature are very collaborative, and we really do, to a fault, go out of our way to take the time, to have that cup of coffee, even though you're like, you are killing me. I've got a million things to do. But in the beginning, it's all about that networking. It's getting out of your comfort zone. It is really, you can come up with a million reasons why you don't want to go to that event where I know no one, and I'm going to just walk around and, say, hi, I know nothing about cannabis, but tell me. But that's really how it happened. It was a very organic experience. Like I said, I met Dina when she was putting on a continuing legal education program in 2014 on medical cannabis in Illinois, just as it was coming online. And the entire discussion was, well, wait a minute, how's this going to affect my law license if I represent a cannabis company? And the, Illinois Supreme Court had to come out with an opinion on it. I mean, just the things that have changed in this industry within the last 5 years has been tremendous and really exciting to work in.
I think what doesn't change, though, is the fear of attending your first networking event, not knowing what you're going to walk into. Because the first one that I went to, it was in 2017. I walked in and it was a room packed full of people, and I was by myself. I was like, what decision have I just made? But there's a real fear that comes along with networking, and it's about just jumping in and knowing that you deserve to be there because you've shown up, and continuing on forward and introducing yourself to as many people who will shake your hands.
Amazing.
When we used to be able to shake hands.
We will again.
We'll adjust.
Bump elbows.
Recent headlines from Illinois have quoted $1 billion in revenue generated from the cannabis industry, proving the market has huge potential. In what ways has the industry changed most significantly over the past 5 years?
The industry overall has just exploded in growth, and that really is from any lens that you choose to look at it from. When the Illinois industry launched, it had 3,000 registered patients. Now it has well over 100,000. And I think if you looked at any state that has a medical program, they're experiencing similar growth. If you look at, the revenue, the, sales revenue generated, that's been explosive. The tax revenue generated for states, has climbed where, Colorado, their government is now, receiving hundreds of millions of dollars a year in tax revenue. We're also seeing, the explosion in the number of jobs created, which has really transformed the types of, subjects you can major in college. You can, major in cannabis related degrees. You can study cannabis in law school. I've had the good fortune to teach a cannabis law course a few times now at a local law school. And I think all of those things have created the huge transformation, which we've seen in recent state and federal elections, which is that stigma of cannabis that used to be associated with, Cheech and Chong and head shops and things like that. Those days are over, and people understand now, that it's medicine for, for people in pain. The typical demographic of a medical cannabis patient is a woman in her 60s with cancer. And then we're also seeing, the younger workforce entering and sort of disrupting in terms of, technology and things like that. So, I think the biggest change really has been the way cannabis has just become a part of a majority of people's everyday lives in one way or another.
And I would also say, like, when you look at 2015, from 2015 to now, in 2015, there were 23 states with medical cannabis programs, 4 with recreational adult, we like to call it adult use now. Fast forward to 2020, there are now 36 states with comprehensive medical cannabis programs and 15 states that have an adult use program. And what is so interesting is it's not a red issue or a blue issue anymore. When you look at the 5 states that had ballot initiatives in November of 2020, all of those initiatives passed. These are states, we're talking about a medical program in Mississippi was passed. South Dakota passed medical and adult use. So this kind of the destigmatization that Dina was talking about, that is really, that's out of the barn. It's no longer an issue of if a state is going to adopt a medical or an adult use program. It's really when. And so the opportunities there for job development and revenue are just profound. And again, when you look at what happened to COVID, like for instance, in Illinois, we just launched our adult program in January. COVID hits in March, and everyone's going to think, oh no, what's going to happen to the cannabis industry in Illinois? Well, dispensers became an essential business. And so it's been just amazing revenue generation. It also allowed some amazing regulatory relief where they enabled medical certifications to be done using telehealth. You can now have curbside delivery. In states, they've also allowed for curbside pickup as well as delivery. So COVID has really advanced some policies in cannabis that used to take years to get done. So again, there's a lot of movement.
Definitely. To build on your answers, what do you think hopeful applicants can do to stand out when there's so much interest in our industry?
I would say that one of the first things that they can do, right, we already kind of talked about networking. You should absolutely network because you can get your name in the right people's ears that will advance you in those companies. Whenever you're putting together your resume and your cover letter, recognizing that you're speaking to a very specific audience and how can you tailor that cover letter to them, educate yourself before coming to either a networking event, educate yourself before you begin to apply for jobs, being aware of the fact that there are a lot of applicants looking for the same role as you. Getting creative. Are you applying for a design role in the cannabis industry? How can you make sure to accentuate that in your resume and cover letter? And then, I think one of the unique things now is that you can look at the industry and see yourself, whether you are maybe a Cheech and Chong or maybe you're looking for something a little higher level, there's definitely space for you. And looking at, okay, which of these organizations align with what I hope to do, and leaning into that, I think is a good way to stand out.
Thank you.
I found that I was able to stand out in the early days because I had as I said, a day job as an attorney that had nothing to do with cannabis, but I had a passion and a drive to get into the industry some way, somehow. And so I decided I could give free continuing legal education presentations. And that meant that really I would spend Friday nights on my couch putting together PowerPoint decks. And that allowed me to learn Illinois law like really well. There I was, studying it line for line and trying to simplify it and boil it down in a way where I could teach other people. So I learned it really well myself. And then when you offer to give free presentations, it's not that hard to get people to say yes. And so there I was, getting my name out there as, a so-called expert on the law, even though, I'd been an expert for all of 2 weeks, but that was still 2 weeks more knowledge than most people had at that point. And, when I met the founder of Green Thumb Industries, what he loved was that, most lawyers weren't really interested in learning about cannabis law until somebody was paying them to do it. But here I had sunk in my own time out of my own interest. So he could tell that it was, a genuine interest. I wasn't just in it for the billable hours. And that passion and drive, differentiated me from a lot of lawyers in town at the time. So, I would say, even though it's not the glamorous part of any of this, and it's always better to get paid, sure. But if you have your heart set on this, try to think about ways that you can, creatively use your time and skills, even if they don't pay that particular day, it may pay dividends down the road.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's exactly what I did as well. I was, gave presentations to staffs in medical offices and in hospitals. And there is just such a need for just the understanding of what's going on in Illinois. And it was interesting to me that so many people weren't even aware that Illinois had a medical cannabis program for, I'd say, a good 3 years or so. And so it's volunteering your time. It's finding a need in the industry. If you've got professional services, there is a need for accountants, attorneys. It's marketing. Anything in a normal industry, they also need it in cannabis. But there definitely are some concerns that you need to be aware of. You need to know the rules and the regulations in your state, because every state has different rules and regulations. You need to check with your bar association, your medical board. You need to be able to even check at the local level, because there's different rules and regulations, state and local. So just be really cognizant of what the regulations are, because this, if nothing else, cannabis is a compliance industry.
Carrie, we'll just keep moving with you on the line. You paved your career working for yourself. Can you speak about what has helped you get what you are, and what would you do differently?
Oh, boy, what would I do differently? I would have acted a lot faster. I think, sometimes women are their own worst enemy, where you can come up with a million reasons why it's not great timing, and you don't know it all. And what if I fail? And who's going to take me seriously? So I definitely would have moved faster. I think, again, I found a need in the market. So you kind of take the skills you have. I took the advocacy skills that I had from working in organized medicine. I saw there was a need to kind of reach the physician community. And I had my network within organized medicine too. So I think that certainly helps. But the biggest thing that you need to do is you just need to go for it, because now's the time. A lot of people think, oh no, it's too late for me to get involved. It's not. We are still at the beginning. And I would say that don't limit yourself to necessarily your geographic location. Again, if COVID taught us anything, you can do your work in anywhere. And we are, Illinois is unique that we are adult use and it has a medical program. But a lot of the states out there are just starting to get their medical program up and running. So there's a tremendous need for a lot of skills to get involved. So I would say, don't let that hold you back.
Thank you. We keep talking about networking, and I know that it's important to think about a strategy for networking, especially in a fast-moving industry, especially with people's time being limited. Can you guys walk us through a little bit of strategy in effective networking?
I'm happy to. I sort of have lived both sides of it. So I lived the early days of walking into rooms and trying to meet people and, trying to create opportunities for myself. And now that, I've kind of been in the industry for a while, I get contacted, pretty regularly with people wanting to do coffee or a phone call. So I understand both sides of it. And, my takeaways would be, number one being do your homework. So, if you've asked me or somebody in the industry for coffee, and you sit down for that coffee and you don't really know anything about the company that person works for, or the, kind of the framework of the industry or your state, you haven't really thought about what kind of role you're looking for. Like, if you're just using me as Google in your networking interview, that's not a good use of your time or mine. And I'm probably not going to expend a lot of energy after that meeting, trying to help you, because I really won't even be sure how I can help you. So I would say the other thing that people forget to do is to define for themselves, what is my goal in sitting down with Dina at this meeting? What is it that I think she could possibly do for me? And let me ask her, how would you define the meeting as a win? How does it feel like that meeting went well for you? You should know what that looks like so you can try to make that happen during the meeting. And then always, keeping in touch. Sometimes I meet with somebody and then I really just never hear from them again. And, they're missing that chance to keep a connection warm. And the last thing I would add is it's not always possible, but it's always nice to think about if you're asking somebody for their time and advice and their connections, just think about if there's anything you could do to be helpful to them. And maybe it's totally unrelated to cannabis. Maybe it's that they happen to mention that their dog sitter just quit and a good dog sitter. So you just reach out with, oh, by the way, you mentioned you need a dog sitter. I have a friend. I mean, it can be the smallest things, but if you show that you're also somebody who's going to look out for others and help others. I like helping people, but I really like people who like helping other people. Those are like the best networks to be in. So always try to give that, some thought as well. And finally, one last point, sorry, but I have a lot of thoughts on this topic. Always follow up with a thank you. If somebody has taken the time, either for the phone call, for the coffee, made the introduction or whatnot, bare minimum is a nice, it can be short and sweet, but a nice email, thanking them for doing that. And again, then keeping in touch.
Yeah, I would say that cannabis is networking is really no different as any other industry. I've been coaching two recent college graduates getting their jobs, and I give them the same tips that Gina just mentioned. And it's if you're going to meet with someone, get on LinkedIn and see who they are. Do what Gina just said. Do your homework on the company, and don't just say, can I pick your brain on the cannabis industry? Be thoughtful with people's time, and do something for them. If they mention that they're having a problem with work, thinking through an issue, in your thank you note back, be thoughtful with what you're going to add into that thank you note, because you do want to stand out as someone that's willing to do what it takes to get into the industry, and not just, yeah, thanks for meeting me, we'll stay in touch, and then you never hear from them, because that does happen all the time. But I like to think that especially women in this industry go out of their way to meet with people and to help mentor people as they're entering into the industry. And I think, your work are more with IWC. That's a big component of what we try and do as we have events, and now we're meeting online. But I think that that's really important, is to provide that mentorship.
100%.
The last thing I would just say is that on the opposite side of that, maybe you've done all of those things. You felt like you knocked it out of the park. You were really excited, and it didn't end in a job right away, or it didn't end in a response right away. Don't beat yourself up over it. Ask maybe what you felt like you could have done to improve. Don't be afraid to ask questions to understand how you can get a leg up the next time. And just know that there will be another opportunity to keep after it, and don't give up just because the first time didn't work out. And like Dina and Carrie both said, keep those connections warm. Or if you left a connection, you were like, that just did not feel like it went well, that was not the right opportunity for you, and there will be plenty others. We've said a few times that if you can see a need and you can meet it, that's just more proof that there are many opportunities in the industry, and they're not going to stop.
Well, we can't talk about entering the cannabis industry without touching on the social equity and diversity work that needs to be done. Gina, can you address?
Yeah, so there is much work to be done in equity. This is one of the few industries that comes with a whole baggage of all kinds of unfortunate events. And I believe personally that everybody coming into this industry has has a requirement really to do work to reverse the harm done by the war on drugs, donating your time to organizations that are doing the work, donating some income to to the organizations that are doing work in your areas. If you're not sure, again, Google's a great tool. In your same LinkedIn or networking connection, ask what are some opportunities that you're aware of in the area that we're discussing that I can give back. You know, if you're in a recruiting opportunity, are you doing your due diligence to look extensively for individuals that meet social equity opportunities? And, you know, just always keeping that in the back of your mind that we have an opportunity to do better and do more. And even when you feel like we've done plenty, there's definitely more that can be done. There's always room for improvement, especially when it comes to social equity. And then as a consumer, you know, when you're out in the world making your cannabis purchases, doing your homework and purchasing from companies that are committed to social equity, that go above and beyond to ensure that they're giving back to communities, they're walking the walk as well as talking the talk, and being a very conscious consumer and participant in the industry.
Dina, would you like to add some of the markers that we can look at, some of the companies rolling out initiatives in social equity and diversity?
Absolutely. You know, as Gina said, it's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And so what are the markers of that? Look at what a company is doing in the community where it has a dispensary. You know, are they engaged in that community? You know, and that can be giving back to the community through funding local social justice organizations, providing job training and things like that. It could be, you know, on a sort of more national scale, like Green Thumb Industries partnered with the Last Prisoner Project, which provides legal services and advocacy to free people who are in prison for cannabis-related offenses. You know, you can donate to social justice organizations that are providing expungement and sealing services, because one of the things we've seen is not only do people, you know, sort of unfortunately and unfairly serve time for cannabis-related offenses, but then it haunts them, you know, once they've already served a sentence, they're serving that second sentence, meaning, you know, their job prospects really suffer. But if you can get those cannabis-related offenses expunged or sealed, then suddenly their job prospects get a lot better. So, you know, look at, you know, a potential employer, look at their website and see what types of activities like that they're doing. If they're not doing anything and they're not even talking about social equity or posting about the topic, and they're not part of that conversation, you know, then, you know, that should tell you something. In 2021, as Gina said, you know, it's really a core issue for our industry to wrestle with. If we're going to have, you know, record revenues and a lot of wealth being created at the same time that people are still sitting in jail for cannabis-related offenses, you know, something's not right. And so we do have an obligation to try to right these wrongs of the past and also the wrongs of the current day.
And I will just add, as your state is looking at exploring expanding a cannabis program to adult use, you know, you can use your voice to demand that they also, you know, embed social equity throughout that program. We like to, you know, be proud of the legislation that was enacted in last year for our adult use law that has a very strong social equity component to it. And we like to think that it's a model for other states. You know, it's not perfect by any means, and there's certainly growing pains that we're experiencing right now. But as your state is looking at what type of regulatory system it'll have for adult use programs, ensure that it has strong social equity provisions, as well as criminal justice reforms, as well as using a portion of your revenues, tax revenues, going back to areas that have been disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs.
Very, very important. Well, ladies, we've all read this headline and been shocked by it. 140,000 jobs were lost in December, and all of those jobs belong to women. In light of this news, how do you think the cannabis industry can specifically offer women new opportunities?
Gina, go ahead.
Sorry.
Or I can.
It's okay. So the cannabis industry has a unique opportunity for women, in my opinion. We are typically caregivers. Cannabis industry, as we've mentioned, is a tool for wellness and health. It goes beyond just, you know, even on a recreational side, for those that think that they're just having a good time, the endocannabinoid system is at work and doing things in your body when you introduce phytocannabinoids, and women have an opportunity to participate in that as caregivers. Women are a large portion of the job force in the healthcare industry. Those skills are applicable in cannabis, especially in places like Ohio and Pennsylvania. You're required to have a pharmacist as well as some doctors on staff. So it's just another opportunity. And when we look outside of just the dispensaries themselves, you know, there is a need for healthcare providers that are interested in cannabis medicine and all of the staffing that goes with those types of physicians' offices. So the opportunities don't just end with in the dispensary. If you are a graphic designer, a female graphic designer, and you're interested in participating in the cannabis industry, you know, it's very helpful to have a woman's perspective in those brandings. And who better than somebody who's well-versed in graphic design and all of those things. If you are working outside of this industry in construction and you're a female, if you're outside of this industry and you work in audio, there's so many opportunities for women in the industry, and it's booming. So the more women that are interested and understand their power, that come into cannabis or look to cannabis as an opportunity, maybe they add a line for cannabis companies, for medical patients, for patients in general. Education is still needed in a lot of the dispensaries. In a lot of the states, education is a requirement for the dispensaries. And if you have a teaching background, or that could be a great opportunity for you. The opportunities for women in the industry are endless, truly.
That's great.
And I would just
go
ahead.
I would just add, it makes business sense for the companies to be hiring women. Women make over 90% of healthcare decisions, and I would submit that cannabis is a health and wellness product. So they absolutely need to get women within their companies, be it at, you know, the dispensary level, but also at the executive level, and I would also say at the board level, because it just makes business sense. So I think that we're really at the right time for women, again, to become involved in the cannabis industry and to really have a strong voice and to lead the direction of these cannabis companies. And I'm going to be bold and say, I think the future of cannabis is women. So, you know,
I couldn't agree.
Yay to us.
Yes, the future is female, 100%. Dina, is there anything else you'd like to add?
You know, I would just add that, you know, what I did in 2014 could easily be done in 2021, right? I knew the cannabis industry was coming to Illinois. I knew I wanted to raise awareness of the opportunities. So I founded a not-for-profit. That can sound like a fancy, hard thing to do. It really isn't. You file a few pieces of paperwork with your state, just so you're sort of a legitimate tax-paying or not-for-profit organization. And then, you know, it was just a matter of finding a venue and getting the word out on social media for an event and using my existing network and asking people to get the word out. And suddenly, you know, like I said, with that first event, that was 50 people in the room, men and women, who wanted to talk about cannabis and what was coming and what were you hearing? And there was just like a buzz and an energy in the room because it was, you know, kind of new for people to find themselves in a room talking about it. And so just the size of the room grew and grew, but the formula was always the same. Just get people in a room talking about cannabis, and you're going to learn about a lot of opportunities and do some fun networking. That's the other thing I'll just say is, like, in other industries, I got to say, networking would be really unappealing. I love networking in this industry. You meet the most interesting people. People come from every background. No two are the same. It's totally unpredictable every time, like who you're going to meet that night and what stories you're going to hear. I definitely feel richer for it. I don't feel bored by it. I think it's people walk out of networking events in cannabis energized and even more passionate about being in the space. So don't dread it too much, because you'll probably be pleasantly surprised.
I agree. I have met amazing, amazing people in the few months that I've been in the industry, and I look forward to continuing to expand my network. Let's talk about a little bit on. Let's touch on expectations on work-life balance. This is a fast-growing industry. What can we expect?
None. Just, you know,
said, yeah, I love it.
There's just so much work to be done and so much to prove. You know, the idea of lazy stoners doesn't exist anymore. We're very active, very diligent, very, all the accolades. So if you're coming into the industry, be ready to do it running. You're going to hit the ground running. You're going to be leaning on the support around you and in your life. You know, definitely make sure that you are well aware of your limits and you take care of yourself, but know that there is a lot of work to be done, and the days are going to be long. We said it at the top of this conversation, but there are many people interested in this industry, and the ones that are going to stand out are the ones that keep showing up, keep giving their best, keep doing their best, and keep trying. Everyone will make mistakes because it's new and there's so much to learn. Just don't give up, keep going, and you know, make sure you have some good delivery services on speed dial for when you need them, because it's a wild ride with a lot to be done, and it's definitely a commitment to consider.
And as I said earlier, it's a startup industry right now. So knowing that's what you're going to do. You're going to be working every day, very long days. Every day is a new problem. You know, they like to say your cannabis is like drinking out of a fire hose. I mean, it truly is a different issue that you have to kind of figure out from scratch. But that's what makes it so fun too.
You definitely will not be bored.
A game, right?
Yeah, no one's ever been bored. And I would just say, you know, I look at, you know, the four of us on this, you know, panel, we are all moms with, you know, kids of different ages, but we all work really hard. But, you know, that passion to be a part of it. And this does feel like this kind of like once in a lifetime opportunity, or like this special moment in time where something goes from, you know, illegal on a federal and state level to, you know, soon facing, you know, federal legalization. Like, it's a really exciting time. So there are those moments where you're exhausted and run a little ragged and you've solved, you know, your 8 millionth problem of the day, and it's tiring. And, you know, you might have friends at corporate jobs that are kind of kicking it 9 to 5 and, you know, sleeping way better at night. And, you know, there might be moments of envy there, but I really wouldn't trade it for the world. And, you know, I think it's also the learning curve. It's having fun with it. I mean, again, you know, you're going to find that people in this industry are great. So you're working hard together, whether it's within your own company or even just my colleagues that are our competitor companies. You know, we work well together. We're all kind of in this crazy adventure together. And we all feel lucky to be there. So don't be afraid of some hard work, you know, try to enjoy it. Won't last forever.
I can definitely echo on that. I do definitely feel like I'm living history. And the environment in the industry is definitely collaborative because there is so much work to be done. Great. Well, to wrap up, we want our audience to leave this talk with concrete next steps to cultivate their Canna-Career. What is one piece of practical advice each of you would give to someone looking to start in the industry?
I would say be ready to give back. You can, like we said, Google some organizations near you that, you know, not only will it help you stand out, but you'll be off on the right foot knowing that you're doing the work that needs to be done getting ready to do more work that needs to be done, but be ready to give back. It'll set you apart from the beginning.
And I would say, you first and foremost, you have to identify what your skill set is and see where you fit in to the cannabis industry. And the cannabis industry isn't just this golden ticket that you're going to get a license to have a cultivation, dispensary, manufacture, delivery. There's all these other ancillary opportunities. It's this huge ecosystem that really has been created to support the full cannabis industry. So don't get so fixated on necessarily working for a cannabis company. You know, identify what your skill set is, get that cannabis education. Gina mentioned it a bunch of times today. You know, no one graduated with a cannabis degree yet. They will soon. So there's lots of opportunity to get that fundamental education and go for it.
And I would say recognize that you're entering an industry that is in its infancy. You're most likely going to be working for a startup company in a startup industry. So if you're used to everyone telling you, you know, the next steps ahead for you and exactly what you should be doing, and having things go sort of smoothly as you expected, you know, toss that out the window. Expect things to be hard, expect them to be new problems that nobody's ever had to solve before. Get comfortable that you're going to take risks all the time, because the right answer has never been asked or never been written before, because we're asking questions every day in this industry that have never been asked before. So get comfortable being a little bit uncomfortable.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. It has been exciting to learn more about opportunities in the fastest growing industry in the nation. I want to thank our panelists for joining our conversation and for sharing their expertise with us, and invite everyone to visit our website for more information, resources, and a comprehensive calendar of events for opportunities to start building a cannabis career. Thank you.